So the piece of art that I decided to analyze is Mistos, or Match Cover, by Laval from Barcelona. It is steel aluminum fiber reinforced plastic, and it is a uh, giant uh, statue of a matchbook. Um, and some of the matchsticks are bent, some of them there are a few on the ground, but the main focus is matchbook with uh, 5 matches sticking out of it, with one of them being lit. Um, so going through the different elements of art, um, for line, there are no real lines in this sculpture, besides the ones created by the sculpture itself. So the very thin lines created by the matchsticks are very interesting, and they make it feel like it's made out of paper and very thin, um, even though it's not very thin in person. But the thinness of the matchstick compared to the fatness of the head makes it appear very thin. For the shapes are really basic, with just solid rectangles and a slight oval at the top for the matchstick. However, they're bent really organically, and it adds a lot of differences between them, and it makes it feel really organic, even though it looks fabricated. In actuality, it is a completely random design. I read a bit of background on it, and this is just a matchbook that the last matchbook they were doing in another art piece, and they threw it in the center of the room, and this is how it was. And they decided to base a sculpture on that and found it could be made incredibly large. So it is an organic shape, very organic, but it appears, at first glance, it feels fabricated. With contrast, the red and yellow are a really big contrast by themselves on the artwork, and they also contrast the green and the gray of the building, or the green of the trees and the gray of the building in the background. And the blue contrasts in the sculpture really well, the blue of the flame, but it gets lost when you're looking at the sky. In almost every picture, the blue flame gets lost at the sky, and you can barely tell it's there. So while that's contrast, looking at the art as a whole, it does not contrast the background at all. This is an example of a sculpture in the round, and you can view it from every angle, and you can walk around it, and you can view it from like directly underneath, or you can view it from across the street. There are a lot of different ways you can look at it, and there are also the pieces that are spread out throughout the ground, not on the main piece itself. The form, value, and mass. The paper thin design has to be my favorite part about it. Like, it looks like origami to me, and it's very. It looks like to scale to a matchbook, and it looks very thin, and it just looks really cool, especially how they hang over the street, and it's very interesting. And it physically looms over you too, so you're standing directly underneath it. The color, it's made of primary colors, yellow, blue, and red. And even though these aren't the usual, like these aren't the exact colors of a matchbook, they are very similar. But it gives the piece a very childlike feel, which is interesting because they're matches and they're not a thing you associate with children or like a plaything, but it makes it seem very childish with the colors that it chose. For unity, variety, and balance, the same matchstick is the unity in the piece. Each of the matchsticks has the same dimensions, but they're all folded very differently, and that's what gives it its variety. Each matchstick is folded very differently, and they each have their own personality almost. And the balance is making all of the matchsticks appear organic. And as I explained earlier, they are organic, so it works out very well. The scale of the matches is huge. The sculpture is 68 feet tall overall at the very tip of the flame. And it really makes you feel small. That's the perspective that it puts you in. It makes you feel like you've been shrunken down smaller than the size of a matchbook. Not that that the matchbook has grown really big. It makes you feel very small. The proportions of the matchbook aren't changed at all. It's a 1-to-1 replica of that original matchbook that they had on the floor. And they found, after doing a clay model, that it would be able to support itself very tall. So that one design just kept on working. So nothing was changed. For the focal point, I feel that the focal point is just the big, bright yellow sections. Just the way that they're laid out and how big they are and how long they are. It's just like the biggest thing to look at and the brightest thing to look at. And it just catches your eye right away. And that kind of leads you up to where they go off to each of the ends of the matches. But the focal point is definitely the yellow of the sticks. I feel like the emphasis is supposed to be on the tallest flame, the one that is sticking straight up and has the flame on it. However, the flame I really can't see it in any of the pictures. I don't think it's visible against the sky. I think that just takes away from it. I think the yellow is a lot more noticeable compared to the green of the trees surrounding it. I think that contrast is way greater. That's a better emphasis. And there's no subordination on this piece either. For the pattern and rhythm, the pattern of the matchbooks, they're all upright and they're all tightly packed together. And it really makes it feel real, just like how well the matchbook was replicated and how accurate it is. It makes the matchbook feel real, even though it's obviously not, and completely different color than it, like very different color. But yeah, I really like this piece.